Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Patek Philippe Calatrava Pilot Travel Time Chronograph reference 5924G-001 in white gold with a blue dial. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the Calatrava Pilot Time, then tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar Calatrava Pilot Times. Then I'll tell you about the case bezel dial bracelet, movement finally tried on, and give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history of the Calatrava Pilot Time. Now, Patek is broken down into four major categories. That's Grand Complication, Calatrava, and then there's sports watches, which is Nautilus and their Aquanauts. This one happens to be in the complication section, which is their second most complicated, right before Grand Complication, and the first Calatrava Pilot Time. Okay, first of all, let's start with this. It's called a Calatrava because the case style has a Calatrava style case, and it's a pilot travel time because it can tell the time in two different time zones. And all the pilot travel times that have been released, there's only been this one and basically the previous generation, which is I'll get to in a second, all tell time in a second time zone, hence the name travel time. The first travel time came out, or the pilot travel time first came out, was reference 5524, and that came out in both white gold and in rose gold, and it came out around 2015. And the significance of that was that when the pilot travel time came out, it was Patek's first foray into more casual watches. Now, what do I say that for? Because most of their watches up to that point had been very formal, either on a leather, a crocodile strap, or black, some kind of very formal watch that you might wear with a suit or tuxedo or something along those lines. 5524, which is the pilot travel time, not non-chrono, was the first time that Patek made a casual watch, and therefore they put it actually on a calfskin. They didn't usually put their watches on calfskin back at least this time. This was almost 10 years ago, and they started making watches that were more casual and could get a younger audience. Patek is known for being a very traditional watch, so they made watches that are very traditional, and those watches usually went on crocodile black straps. And so making it the pilot time on a calfskin and sort of having this much more casual look to it drew a younger audience. That watch did very, very well. It was also a watch that was not particularly hard to get, so that means and it was not particularly expensive, at least by Patek standards. The retail price on that was like $60,000, and it's reselling at jazztime.com for less than $40,000. So it's a watch that's not hard to get, and you can put your name on it. You can get it easily from the Patek store. So it was a smash hit for them. And then they followed it up, and of course they had many variations of it. They had the ladies variation in 37 millimeter, both in white gold and rose gold, and then they have a men's version in 42 millimeter in both rose gold and white gold. All right, and they had that from 2015 all the way until 2023. They didn't make any changes into it. So 8 years later, they came out with the newer variation of it, which is the 5924. And the difference is that it adds a chronograph feature to the dual time as opposed to just being a simple dual time. And as a result, it does add a few things that are different. I'll go through the differences when we talk about the case and the bezel and the rest of the stuff. But basically, it is same as the pilot travel time. It just adds an additional complication, which is the 60-minute chronograph that you see here at the very bottom, at the 6 o'clock position. Okay, there's some other differences. I'll tell you about it when we get to it. Okay, so let's move forward here. That's a little bit about the history. And now let me tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other 5924Gs. Now the 5924G, the first time the travel time chronograph came out, it only came out in white gold, and that came out in 2023. So 8 years after the release of the first travel time. and it only came out in white gold in two colors, blue and green, which is not unexpected because their aquanauts that were 42 millimeters also came out in blue and green. It seems like those are the two favorite colors of Patek when they release it. They have yet to release any other variation of it. However, I suspect that they will, probably another rose gold version, maybe a brown dial or something like that in the near future. But as of now, this is all they have, at least as of 2024. Okay? All right, so that's where it stands in the lineup. And also to tell you a little bit about price, the watch is retailing close to 80,000. We're selling it in the 50s at jazztime.com. Close to 60, but still has a 5 in front of it. So you get a heavy discount if you buy it at jazztime.com. You can do so by clicking on the link in the description below. Okay, now let's start talking about the case, and I'll also tell you about what the difference is with the older model as we go along. Okay, now the case now is 42 millimeters. It was also 42 millimeters before. It is still 42 millimeters now. The difference, though, is the height. This height is 13 millimeters. I believe the old height was around 10 or 11 millimeters. You might not think that that's much different, but it comes out to quite a big difference. It's 20-30% difference. And the reason is because it has this chronograph, which adds more parts. And I'll tell you how many parts when we get to the movement section, but it adds quite a bit of heft to the watch. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a little bit of heft makes the watch look more rugged, more sporty than a very thin watch, which is also good in some ways, but it's also good in some ways to have it thicker. Okay, not too thick, but 13 millimeters is by no means too thick. Okay, so that's the thickness and the case. Now the case also, a marked difference is before on the older version, the one that, I don't want to say that this one replaces it, but it certainly is the successor to it. The pushers were on the left side, and they were only used for the purpose of changing the dual time because it did not have a chronograph. In this situation, the Patek has wisely put the chronograph, put the pushers on the right-hand side as opposed to the left-hand side, which, by the way, the left-hand side was a little bit awkward. It was kind of weird when it came out, but it's a weird in a good way. Weird I wouldn't say weird. Weird is not the right word. Unique is the better way to describe it. It was quite unique when it came out. But now Patek has gone back and put them on the right side. And what else I can tell you about this case is that instead of adding too many pushers, what they've done is they've allowed you to do the start and stop with the pushers on the right hand side, which is quite a nice way to do it. Okay, now let's move on to the dial here. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say that the case is made of white gold, all white gold. Okay, they don't make any other variation of it, by the way. Okay, so white gold, there you have it. Okay, now let's move on to the dial. Now the dial here, they make it in either a khaki green or the blue that you see here. Now Patek calls this their sunburst blue gray. To me, it basically just looks blue, sorry, and it's a very beautiful blue. I really can't say anything bad about it. Actually, I can say a lot of good about it. It's a very beautiful blue. Okay. And it has a little bit of gray in it, actually. It doesn't look completely blue, so I guess I can see why they put it blue-gray. But anyways, okay, that's the dial. Now let's break down the dial a little bit, and let's say at the 12 o'clock position, you see the date. That is 1/2/31. They had that on the previous version as well. Actually, it was at the bottom, but they still had it. So either way, and at the bottom here, they have a 60-minute counter. So when you activate the chronograph, the start-stop, it activates the chronograph, which is a 60-minute counter as opposed to other, like, usually chronographs are like 12-hour counters or at least have several hours on them. But then again, I'm not sure how many things that you'd be timing that's more than an hour. So I still think it's quite a good one. So anyways, the counter is at the 6 o'clock and the date is at the 12 o'clock. On the previous generation, the date was 1/2/31 was at the 6 o'clock, and they had no 60-minute counter. Okay, now you see let's take a look at the hands. Now, normally a watch has 3 hands, hours, minutes, seconds. This watch has 4 hands, just like the previous generation as well. It has a skeletonized hand that tells you the time. They call it the home time, and the local time would be the traditional hands that you see in front of you, the luminescent hands. And that would tell you, like, for example, if you're in USA, in California, where we're at, that you see the time here in the local time, which is displayed on the left hand with the traditional hands. And then the skeleton hand would be like some time zone in some other place, for example, like in, Europe or something. Let's say you're European and that's the time that you have there. So you would read it off the skeletonized hand. And interestingly, you see this white and blue dot right here, or these little holes right here, it says local and home. What happens is you can, as the time on local time goes around 24 hours, when it passes 6 p.m., it starts to turn blue, and when it gets to 6 a.m., it starts to turn white again, which lets you know whether it's day or night in your own local time, which is not that necessary, but it is necessary when you're checking the home time. So the second time zone, you don't know if it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. You could look at the day and night indicator to tell. Okay, very nice functions actually. I think for someone who's traveling, I think it's actually very useful. Okay, all right. That is the dial. Let's move on to the strap. Well, the strap is not a whole lot to talk about here. I mean, it's a calfskin. Well, I can say this. Usually when Patek puts their straps on a crocodile strap, they mean that watch to be very formal. But when they put it on a calfskin like they do here, they mean it to be much more casual. So there you have it. And it has a clevis prong buckle, also known as a belt buckle or a pin buckle, the most basic kind of buckle. All right, now let's move on to the movement here. The movement, again, is a beautiful Patek movement. It's a sort of a variation of the one that went into the 5524. This is a CH28520CFUS. It's self-winding, has a flyback chrono, it has 2 time zones. It has a lot of parts. I think the previous parts were much less. This one has 370 parts, and to give you an idea, the previous generation had something like 290 parts. So like another 100 parts that go into this, which is why it's a little bit thicker. As I told you, it's 13 millimeters as opposed to the previous 10. So anyways, the movement, it's a beautiful Patek movement. What can I say? And you can see it through the exhibition case back. So I mean, the movement speaks for itself. It's very beautiful. It has what is it, 35, 40 hour power, or it says 45 to 55 hour power reserve, gold rotor, and yada, yada, yada. It looks fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead and try this watch on my wrist and give you my thoughts. So I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and I have a 7.5 inch wrist. Now, my thoughts on this watch is I really like the watch, and I'll tell you why. Because Patek does not make a whole lot of 42 millimeter watches in their complication dress watches. That comes to mind is this one that you see in front of you, the 5924. They make the 5524, which is the previous generation I was telling you about, and then they make a 5905, which is an annual calendar chronograph, and that one's also really nice, and it's I believe it's also 42 millimeters. And I don't think there's any more that's 42 millimeters. There are other ones that are 41 millimeters, like the 5326, the 5172, and I think 5235, or there's 40 or 41, something like that. But there are no ones that are 42, not a whole lot that are 42. I think even the 5935 is 41 millimeters. So these are the biggest watches that Patek is making in their complications. And in fact, it might even be one of the larger ones in the grand complications. So if you like larger watches and you like larger casual watches, definitely you should consider this one because there's not a lot of options. It's a little bit more casual than the 5905. All right, and it's newer too. Okay, all right, anyways, so those are my thoughts. And also you can get this watch under retail. When it first came out, it was selling well above retail. Now it's come down quite a bit, and you can save yourself quite a bit of money by going to jazztime.com and buying it there.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to Model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.